Hello and welcome everybody. This is Santiago here with the Voices of Tech. Super stoked on the guests that we have today. We have Trevor, CEO and founder of interVal. Huge making moves with SaaS in the wealth management in the bank area. So Trevor, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation. My name is
Amazing.
Trevor Greenway. I'm the co-founder and CEO of interVal. We are a software platform that is sold to wealth managers or wealth advisors, banks, and accounting firms. Basically, we believe that we can supercharge them, ultimately save them a great deal of time, and help them service their business owner customers in a better and more efficient way.
Amazing. Amazing. And I know you had a background in consulting, Trevor. Can you explain to me a little bit about that process of why you decided to build a software instead of stick with the consulting?
I First short answer is, but I did it by accident. So yeah, myself and my co-founder, we started an M&A boutique around 12 years ago. The whole concept was we believed that business owners were far too reactive when it came to the M&A process. It was typically, they got tired or, something changed in market or there was a health scare that would typically kind of be the precursor to, considering one's exit from the business. And we felt that that was just too reactionary. And so what we wanted to do is help business owners take stock of the value they're creating in their business sooner so that they could make more educated decisions about their future. So we
Yeah.
used to get referrals from banks, accounting firms, wealth advisors. So you can see where this is going. And they used to refer us in and say, well, this business is, $7 million. It's not big enough, for, our corporate finance team or whomever, but like they do rely on this liquidity event as part of their retirement. And so they would refer us into these businesses. And quite frankly, we got sick of being the bearers of bad news. Because one of the first things we would do before taking on an M&A mandate is we would say, okay, what are your goals? What do you need this to be worth? What's it actually worth? And what's the likelihood of you achieving this in market? And so we kind of did this initial diagnostic, which we were kind of surprised that like no one really did. And so we started there and we kept having to give business owners bad news. And I'll never forget it. I was out in Western Canada sitting at someone's coffee table at the time, and a husband and wife had to give them the bad news that they needed this business to be worth $8 million to really, they had a number of obligations. They had no pension. This was their retirement. And I had to
Wow.
tell them that it was worth less than two. And
Which is a
I'll never
huge
forget.
discrepancy from what
Huge
they were
discrepancy.
expecting. Yeah.
Well, it's not even what they were expecting. They kind of just like blindly expected it because it's what they needed, and I think that
Oh
kind
my.
of
Yeah.
informed their thought process. And I'll never forget it. And the wife, she was emotional, and she said, "I'm not mad at you." She said, "But like lots of other people that are advising us every step of the way, like they had access to this information too, and they never told us." And I had to give them the pretty crappy answer of like,
Yeah.
"Well, you never asked." And so that was when I realized I was like, maybe there's something else going on here. Maybe there's something going on with the advisors that it's not that they don't want to help. They're great and they want to help these business owners create great outcomes. But if they're not diving deep enough, there's got to be a reason. And it turns out there
Exactly.
was. It was capacity. It was time. And they said, I've got so many things I need to do. I've got so many things as a banker, as an accountant, as a wealth advisor that like I tend to focus in on what's in my box.
Yeah.
And we said, well, maybe there's a way for us to do this where we can change that. And so we kind of came up with the idea for interVal of like, what if we could take our diagnostic process and automate it, make it so that
Hmm.
every business always knew what what their underlying health and value was, so they could make smarter decisions about their future. And then we accidentally cannibalized our entire referral market overnight as soon as we built that, because all of our accountants, bankers, and wealth advisors that used to refer us business said, "Forget referring you consulting and M&A business. Can
Yeah.
we just license this tool you've built?" And I said, well, it's not modular nor scalable. Like we
Hmm.
outsourced it, but I was like, what if I
Going through by
rebuilt it in
accident.
what if I rebuilt it in a way where it was like, what's the problem it's solving for you? And they said, you're solving a capacity and visibility problem for us. We don't have time to do any of this.
Yeah.
And we don't have visibility to who are our best customers, who has the most opportunities, who can we help the most, or who has risks that need to be mitigated. So if you
Yeah.
can do that for us, that's hugely valuable. So we decided, we pivoted. We sold our M&A business, we spun out that idea, and we began to build interVal. And it was kind of a de-risk startup because we already knew who our customers were because they told
Exactly.
us, right? So it
You're
was
in the
it,
industry.
right. So and because we came from the industry, we were domain experts first. I think it immediately kind of gave us a leg up in credibility, and we knew who our first customers were going to be. But that
Hmm.
was ultimately how interVal was born. Is at the end of the day, technology, it's a medium to solve a business problem.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to necessarily be a technologist. You have to bring in the right people to build and ultimately manage. And that's what we've done. You have to solve a business problem and you gotta create value. And so like that core tenet of business has been the same for hundreds of years. We're just now using different mediums to solve it. And I think that's kind of why we've been successful is we've been laser focused on that and that domain and understanding the workflows of our customers and then having technology be the conduit to do it.
Absolutely. And how long ago did you make this transition and kind of see this shift?
I was about 4 years ago. We kind of started building just really slowly and just kind of, we iterated with our customers. We formed what we called a product council where we had people that were literally giving us feedback bi-weekly on what we were building based on how it would work in market for them, right? It's again, like I think a lot of companies, like they kind of go into like what they call stealth mode and they're just like they're building, but it kind of becomes a bit of an echo chamber sometimes where like
Yeah.
you don't have anyone telling you that you're on the wrong path and eventually you're going to find out the hard way. So we just sought that feedback along the way because if we knew who our customers were going to be, they might as well have a hand in how it gets built out.
And did you have any idea how to build a software before this, or did you just kind of just go with the flow with it?
So we brought in a couple. Our CTO was one of our first hires. He's been VP of engineering and CTO at multiple like international companies.
Nice.
I found him, again, you're going to notice a pattern here is, as you can tell, I'm a passionate guy and I talk to a lot of
Absolutely.
people. I also don't have a ton of shame in that like I'll ask anyone anything and the worst they can say is no.
Which is
And
amazing.
so I actually met this guy because someone told me that he might be able to connect me with someone who might want to take a chance on a startup. And so I met him as a kind of this connector. And I really liked him. We talked for 2 hours and I messaged him that night and I just said, "Hey, this is going to seem weird." But I said, I don't want anyone in your network. It's you I want. I said, "I can't afford you."
The late night message.
I said, I can't afford you. But like maybe there's a way that we can do this together if you're passionate about this. And he said, he messaged me right back and he said, "I just finished talking to my wife." And I said, "I think this is the one I want to do." And he goes, "I know that wasn't why we were talking, but he's like, I believe in what you're building and I think I can be a valuable part of it." He's been through the gamut. Like he's done so many cool things. He's in his like early 50s. He's like, "I'm only doing this once more." And he's like, "I'd rather do it with you." And so that kind of like those kinds of hires early on were pretty critical in helping us, find the right engineers to ultimately, build out the vision. And, yeah, we've gotten lucky a few steps along the way.
Yeah. And I really want to touch on how you've grown since then, but really, what was the big change in the market that sparked this? That hey, I need to switch my business model.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't say it was necessarily the market. It's that like I think sometimes things just come together. Like there's like a
Yeah.
convergence of factors in that myself and my co-founder didn't really have a whole lot of interest in scaling a consultancy because you can only scale consultancies with people. And we said, obviously there's this kind of technological wave. We didn't know what it was going to become, but we knew that, Moore's law is real, right? And that like
Yeah.
how fast things are growing and expanding in the tech space. So we wanted to do something kind of tech focused or at least, tech enabled. And we believed that there was kind of, again, this convergence of factors. And you and I talked off air beforehand that we knew that financial advisory or financial services in general had a problem. It has a labor shortage and it's getting worse. And there was a study done recently that said that they're going to miss out on $420 billion in revenue over the next 10 years due to a capacity constraint, due to a labor shortage. And so when you combine that with so you've got industries that we sell to who have baby boomers exiting on
Exactly.
the financial services side, and then fewer people entering the industry at a time when there's never been more small to medium-sized businesses, that's a pretty massive gap, right?
Exactly.
They need more help, and there's no one to give it to them. And so we saw that, and because we'd lived it and had to give people bad news along the way, it forced us to dive deeper and say, well, why is this happening? And then when we got to the core of it and realized how big the problem was and that it's getting worse, said, well, we get to feel good about helping business owners. I get to feel good about that. And it's still core to me is they are the lifeblood of the North American economy, right?
Absolutely.
Like 97% of businesses are in the SMB space. Now, the big ones obviously are the ones we hear about that are in the 3%.
The Google,
but like,
the Microsofts, yeah.
these are people that rely on this to fund their future, fund their family's future, right? Like that's important. And so now we still get to help them just like we did in M&A, but we get to do it by changing the way financial advisory works. That we can now make it so that they can do more with less. They can make more money along the way, but they can protect and improve their business owner customers, thereby creating this symbiotic relationship where they get to win and their business owner gets to win. And then ultimately, we are changing an industry while we.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, you started interVal about 4 years ago. How have you seen your company grow, and also how have you seen your clients grow with it?
So we kind of started small. Like we started with we called them like smaller versions of our ICP.
Hmm.
So in banking, like we worked with a lot of like credit unions at onset
Yeah,
because they had a lot of the markers of like the larger banks, but we obviously weren't big or credible yet, and we could create value with them and kind of have this kind of mutually beneficial where they give us feedback, we iterate and grow, and we did that in accounting and wealth as well, where we kind of started with smaller versions of the kind of customers that we eventually wanted to grow into,
yeah,
but you can't just like convince people of things. Data has to support it. And I'm a firm believer that ROI is the way pricing is going to work in the future. It's going to be value-based pricing. If you can prove that you're creating value, the price shouldn't be like based on seats or jamming people for going up a tier. Like if you're creating value, that can inform your price. And so
exactly.
we focused on that early and saying, well, if we're going to get smaller volume, let's at least have those inform our business cases for how we could really create outsized returns at scale with our enterprise customers. So we kind of started there and began to build kind of systematically towards that and hoping obviously the data would support it. And lucky
Yeah,
for us, it did. And now it's gotten us into like we're working with a number of national firms in Canada, a couple of international firms as well,
amazing.
in the enterprise space that like are some sizable deals. But for us, they're creating value for them at scale across tens of thousands of business owners that they serve and empowering their advisors in an automated way to have more interactions that are valuable in the moment. And that's really where our name comes from, is valuable interactions. We want to make sure that
Yeah.
these advisors are having meaningful interactions when the data tells them that there's one to have.
Exactly, exactly. And I love how the name coincides with the whole story and the whole meaning of the business and the problem that you're solving. So, yeah, in terms of your clients, like what kind of remarks have you had or what kind of reviews have you had from before they used it interval to after?
So we've got a couple of really interesting studies that have been done, one on each side, one for the business owner, because our business model is that we sell to the institution, where that's who we create the most value for. The
Mm-hmm.
business owner also wins along the way. So there's this mutually
Mm-hmm.
beneficial outcome, but they give it away for free to their business owners. They want their business owners on this because it helps them build better businesses. And what we've been able to prove is that business owners on our platform over multiple years grow on average 29% year over year in terms of enterprise value. And it's because they're getting feedback, right? We automate business valuation. I believe that business valuation is a right. It shouldn't be an event. It shouldn't cost tens of thousands of dollars to find out what your data is telling you. It's your data,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we've kind of democratized access to that and said, in an automated way, you should understand how you're creating value. Is it the be all end all? No, it's a bit of a vanity number, but it's something that you should be tracking. And so what we've
Yeah.
been able to prove is that if business owners are aware of not just the top end number, the valuation, but also what's driving it, so we benchmark them across their industry peers and show them how they're performing, underperforming, overperforming in areas and what they can do about it so that they just start to make healthier business decisions. It's like when
Yeah.
you or I step on the scale. If I don't like the number, I tend to try and make healthier life choices, right? Because
Absolutely.
I'm getting feedback, right? And so
Yeah.
we've been able to prove that that actually creates better outcomes. And why that's relevant is if you're a wealth advisor and your business owner is growing without you,
Yeah.
all they're doing is passively growing your potential for future AUM. And their insurance products that they're going to need are going to be different. And they might be
Mm-hmm.
spitting off more cash that then needs to be extracted from the business. Like you have vested interest in them growing. And if you can do it without actually having to interact, well, that's capacity creation, right?
Exactly.
And so we then notify them when there's things for them to be doing inside of their business owner customers. So that's one of the things that like I'm pretty passionate and excited about is that we can make it so that they know when to interact. They know what
Mm-hmm.
questions to ask. We've now automated the creation of meeting agendas. So they'll go into their year-end meeting with their customer with an agenda that we created based on the data that we analyzed. And it
Yeah.
says these are the types of questions you should be asking. These are the types of products you should be talking about. So that ironically, technology is actually making the human more human. The human ends up being the seller, the relationship
Yeah.
manager, not the discoverer of like what's going on inside of the
Mm-hmm.
underlying data. That can be automated. And so that's where I think the future of financial advisory is the softer skills. How well do you know your customer? Are these interactions meaningful? Do they trust you? Are you bringing a product that fits that problem right now? And
Yeah.
how did you know it existed? Well, not because you spent 2 hours trying to find it, because we told you it was there.
Exactly. Exactly. Did you find that before interval that business owners had accurate assessments of where they were at and where they needed to go?
Not often.
Okay.
There was a study done by IBIS World that said that 98% of SMBs don't actually know the true value of their business.
Oh,
Yet it makes up 85%.
98%?
Yet it makes up 85% of their wealth and potential wealth,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, well, that was kind of the gap ultimately we were looking to solve for. Is like I believe that people should know, and if they're going to get bad news, get it early, and
Exactly.
find
So we can be
and like just
proactive.
don't plan on it. And so like that's why we've been working with our wealth. We have a number of wealth firms that are our customers, and they've now embedded this in financial planning. And because previously financial plans were based on all factual data, like where are my investments, like what
Hmm.
stocks do I hold, like all factual numbers except for one, the value of the business. Do you want to know where they got that number from? The
Where?
business owner. They ask them.
Wow.
It never gets revisited. We don't even know if it's right. And so we've got financial
Not data
plans.
driven.
It's not data driven at all. And so they've got financial plans that are inherently wrong from the very beginning. And then every year that number should be getting updated.
Hmm.
So that's ultimately what we're solving for them is like at least build a financial plan that's based on fact and begin to understand, well, what are their goals? What do they need? How does this impact how you invest elsewhere? And so if you're sitting
Absolutely.
on a $10 million asset and no one knows it, then how can you properly advise them on what products and services might help them create the best outcome? So that's where I think I don't believe in tools that make people do something new. I think that
Hmm.
capacity is too constrained. People just won't do it. So what
Yeah.
we've done is we've embedded ourselves in a process. For our accounting firms, we're embedded in the year end. Every time a year end gets runs through our system, we identify the opportunities, we identify the risks, and we surface the valuation. They have something to then go into their client meeting that says, hey, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's where I can help you. Maybe there's some advisory work. In wealth, it's financial planning. Let's
Yeah.
make sure that every year, as you're having this year-end meeting with the client, say, okay, have we built more value? If so, how? How do we want to do this? Hey, I got notified by interval that you're sitting on $2 million in excess cash that's not necessary to run the business. We should be getting that out. So, like,
Absolutely.
we're embedding ourselves in workflows and we're embedding ourselves in a place where advisors and business owners can meet around something that's mutually beneficial.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Trevor, we talked about the talent shortage that we're seeing and the growth in SMBs. And we talked about the inaccurate evaluations of businesses. Is there any other changes that you're seeing in the industry that would cause the need for interval?
It is very much labor and capacity focused on
Yeah.
the advisor side. It's a huge problem. The other thing too, though, is we're starting to see a bit of a flip in the dynamic where a lot of the relationships between advisor and business owner have been predominantly transactional, where
Hmm.
it's like you call your bank when you need something,
Exactly.
or your accountant is like, "Ah, okay, fine, I'll do my year ends, but like, what's this going to cost me?" And what we're seeing is a lot of the business owners are now beginning to expect more. Like one of our best referral sources is actually we don't sell direct to business owners, but we have business owners all the time say, "How do I get your platform?" It's like you should tell your accountant or your banker or your wealth advisor that they should be contracted with interval because these banks, these wealth advisors, these accountants are, and they're giving it away to their business owners for free. So it's almost like giving the pitchfork to the masses and saying, hey guys, like they're expecting more. They want more from their advisors. And there's been a
Yeah.
number of studies done that business owners say, hey, I don't feel properly supported or advised. And it's not that the advisors don't want to, it's that they don't have time to. And
Exactly.
so giving them the things that create capacity so that they can have those meaningful interactions, it flips the power dynamic where they don't have to worry about like the pitchfork anymore. It's like, hey, great, you're
Hmm.
bringing to me something that like is really cool, I've never heard of before, and it's
Yeah.
value add to the business owner. All the while, it's automating discovery for the firm itself.
And it's based on their own data, which is truly valuable. And so, Trevor, you started this business 4 years ago. AI's really become, kind of a buzzword in the past 2 years. Uh, has AI impacted your business or your growth since this kind of revolution?
It has. It has. We've been kind of methodical and thoughtful in how we deploy it because we are handling some sensitive data, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of financial statements. So for us, it wasn't like we could just dive head first in when everything first kind of came out. But we have noticed a huge difference. Some even in just our internal workflows and how we function. I know it's made a huge difference in marketing and efficiency and how we can function there.
Yeah.
And now we've embedded it in the platform. We've embedded it in elements of how we recategorize data and bring in data at scale. Like AI allows us to do some pretty cool and fascinating things. And then on that latter part where I talked about like action plans, like AI generated agendas,
Yes.
that is something that like we could have done previously and just coded that, but the AI component allows us to get it to market so much faster, and like giving them cheat sheets of what types of questions they can ask to generate meaningful conversations. Like we've got an AI component to that as well, right? And so there's elements there where we've been able to really plug it in, and you look at your roadmap and you say things that like, hey, that might have been 3 quarters out, and it's like, hey, we got it done this quarter because we were able to leverage AI. Like that's where the big gains are.
Speed is everything. Speed is everything. And it's nice that it's all data driven because as a tech guy, I'm very big on data never lies. And, in the 4 years that you've been in business, what's been working really well for interVal? And also on the flip side, what's been frustrating with starting up this startup?
Yeah, I think startups, and for any founders out there that are listening, like startups are hard and
Yeah.
they're lonely. I read something that said I think it's like 4% of tech startups reach $1 million in ARR. And I had just had this conversation earlier today actually, where I think one of the hard parts early on when you're starting a company is remaining laser focused on the business problem you're solving and not listening to all the noise, because
much noise.
everyone has an opinion on how you build. And I don't just mean technically, I mean like your go to market, and there's so much information out there that it's almost overwhelming. And I think you got to stick to kind of your gut and stick to like what you believe will work, because you can drive yourself crazy. And I do find it somewhat ironic that an industry that has such high failure rates tends to copy each other all the time, right?
Yeah.
That seems kind of backwards. It feels like we should not be copying each other if the failure rates are so high. So we kind of focused in on leaning into our domain expertise. Like I come from the industry. We've got a number of CPAs on our product team. Like we come from the industries we serve.
Exactly.
And so that deep domain knowledge, I think, is our superpower. And for us, it was like that mattered more to really remaining laser focused on the business problem we solve and embedding in existing workflows than like your traditional kind of like, well, you iterate on this product and you innovate and you go into stealth mode and then you launch. And it's like, again, that whole concept of like, if you do that, like you kind of sometimes create a bit of an echo chamber where like you just believe everything that you're telling yourself. We've just said, hey, if we're going to get bad news from our customers, we want to get it quick so we can still kind of adapt and change. And I think that's kind of been our biggest win, because it like early on, admittedly, not coming from tech, I was just a voracious learner. Like I was listening to podcasts, I was reading, and I was just like, how can all of these different like playbooks be right? Like, it's not possible. It's like multiple religions. It's like they can't all be right.
Exactly.
Right? But it's like the point is that you got to put your faith somewhere. And so for us, it was our faith was in we know deeply the problem we're solving, and we're not going to stray from that. And how we build it is going to be direct feedback loops on how we get there, and we'll listen to the data and we'll listen to our customers. And I think that served us well in the long run. But early on, it's hard because everyone's got an opinion on how you build.
Everybody, even the most irrelevant opinions get voiced. And so, Trevor, going forward, what metrics are you most focused on improving for interVal?
I'm sorry, you cut out there. I couldn't.
Yeah, apologies. Going forward with interVal, what metrics are you most focused on improving, whether it's a business development or on the internal side?
Yeah, so the things that right now we're really laser focused on, and this won't surprise you based on what I said previously, is the ROI component, right? And that like everyone kind of has theoretical ROI, and then your customers dismiss it and they're like, yeah, sure, like that seems kind of best case scenario. But now we're getting to the point where we've got some pretty interesting data. One of our customers in the wealth space was measuring a control group of customers that were not attached to interVal versus a group that was attached to interVal to see if there was an increase in investments made with the interVal customers.
Yeah.
And they saw a 300% increase in investments that went back to the wealth firm in net new investment from the interVal attached businesses over the ones that weren't. And the reason is that business owners had more context. They were sitting there saying, well, I didn't know that I was hoarding cash. I just keeping it for a rainy day. And so one of our calculations that we run is what's the ongoing working capital need for that business based on its size and industry. And then it calculates the delta. And it says, well, if you're sitting on excess, that's just a redundant asset that's making you nothing in your business. And so they started realizing, well, okay, like there's other ways that I can extract this and I can invest it, make money off of it. And doesn't mean I can't access it later.
Yeah.
It could still be my rainy day fund, but I might as well be making money off of it. So those types of things, that's what we're laser focused on, is the ROI that we create for our institutional firms and being able to truly quantify that. And that's the really exciting part for us right now, because it informs your pricing. If you can prove it and justify it, we want every single one of our enterprise customers and even down market customers to have outsized returns based on their spend. Like they should be making 10x, 20x, 30x. And if we can prove it, then you can justify cost.
That's huge. And that's so awesome that you were able to conduct a case study from both ends. And was interVal always this robust of a tool, or has it been something that you're constantly molding along the way?
It's constantly been evolving, and I think, and we kind of play on that too, right? We tell our customers, like, one of the benefits of working with a firm that's in growth mode is you're buying it based on today's capabilities, but you get additional capabilities as they come out. Yeah. And so we've got a number of 3-year contracts with customers that scale upwards. And so and we say, look, guys, it's going to create this much value in year one as you get this many businesses on the platform. But I don't believe you're going to get all of them on the platform in year one. So you will grow into this where the ROI will be commensurate with your spend. And they have some cost certainty. They also get the improvements as they come out along the way. Absolutely. And our improvements are all based on customer feedback. Like, the 2 areas we've over-indexed is on domain knowledge and our customer success team. So our customer success team are a bunch of rock stars. And I will never underinvest in customer success, because they are not only your retention component, but it's not just about teaching. Customer success is a tool that informs your product, informs your go-to-market. If you create a feedback loop, if they're just in there to teach people how to use it, well, it's just like buying Adobe off the shelf. And it's just like, this is how it functions. This is how you work, right? And so for us, we're saying, no, we got to create these feedback loops where they're giving us feedback on things we could do, right? And customers begin to inform your roadmap. And so that component is where customer success, I think, gets this bad rap, where it's like, well, they just want to make sure that your customers are using it. It's like, that's
being reactive and
that's
whatnot.
Table stakes, right? Like, how to conduct interviews, bring product along, those types of things I think can really build upon themselves, and that's an area that we've really invested in heavily, and I believe in.
Yeah, creating more valuable interactions within your clients. That's awesome. I really love to hear that, and definitely taking note on that with my business. Is customer success should be a key focus. So, we talked a lot about future proofing. Where do you want to see interVal in, say, 12 months from now, 1 year?
So we are admittedly in growth mode right now. We tripled last year in terms of top line revenue.
Huge.
Expectation is to do that again. And so we're just right now, we've kind of got some key markers we're hitting on. We're not venture backed. We've bootstrapped this with. We've got some high net worth individuals that took a chance on us, with some early investors to really just kind of back us and believed in the vision, and they've been huge supporters of us, and we couldn't have got here without them. It's not that we're anti-VC or anything like that. Like, we will be in market probably later this year, but we just want to make sure we have the right partner. And I'm a firm believer that money has the proverbial weight, and the weight that it bears better sit on top of a foundation that isn't going to crack. And so we spent more time focusing on building the foundation and building the business and getting national customers and international customers, so that, you talk about future proofing. He's like, that's one of the ways to future proof is prove that you act. We always act like we don't have product market fit, even when we do. And that's how our team operates. It's like, never act like you have product market fit, because then you will be constantly searching for more ways to create value and iterate. But then we wanted to get to this point, or this plateau of okay, we're good. We've built a good business, cash flow positive. It's like, okay, we're heading in the right direction. Now what? Because my foundation can bear the weight of money and can actually allow us to supercharge our growth. And so now we're kind of in this position of kind of weighing our options, which is a pretty exciting place to be in. Yeah,
it's a beautiful point to be in business. And I would hope to strive for my own business to be at that point at some point in the future. And so, you're clearly a very, very passionate guy, Trevor, which I admire a lot, especially, talking about how focused you are just on solving that one problem. You saw the difference in the case study from clients who did use interVal and clients who don't. Where do you see this going 5 years from now with the difference in talent that we're seeing?
So I think what's going to happen is I think you're going to see an evolution, and I think we're starting to see it. And some of our customers have acknowledged this. Others are a little more leery to, I think some industries are a little worried about disrupting themselves. And so we kind of, we kind of had a decision to make initially, and we said, are we the disruptor of these industries, or are we the saviors of the incumbent? And I know that that sounds grandiose and almost arrogant, but like, I don't believe we're saving them. I just believe we're helping them create this natural evolution.
Exactly.
Where I believe the types of people that are ultimately going to be in some of these jobs, not all of them, like there's still a lot of knowledge and complexity to each of the verticals that we serve. And there will always need to be people there that do that. But I do believe that account managers at banks and like junior partners at accounting firms and young wealth advisors, they need to be augmented in a way that, like, you think about these baby boomers that are leaving these industries, they're just retiring, and the experience goes with them. But this next wave of people, they don't have this experience, and there's fewer of them. So how are we going to make it so that they are great relationship managers that have meaningful interactions with their customers, but don't have the experience to draw on? Well, we can ultimately synthesize data in a way that tells them, here's what we need to do. Here's where we need to be talking. If you need to bring in someone senior for this discussion, fine, but we found it for you, and here's the conversation you need to be having, and this will create value for your business owner. Right? That's for me, this is the evolution of these industries. And I do believe that we're not replacing humans, we're augmenting them. We're in this whole concept of making humans more human. That's what technology can do. And it will open up a labor pool for them, because then they can start to hire different kinds of people.
Exactly.
Right? And people that are truly relationship sales focused understand ultimately what the products do and how they create value, but they maybe don't need all of the experience and knowledge that was walking out the door. And I think there's a natural evolution there that's coming, and I'm excited to kind of be on the forefront of that, because I think these industries are critical going forward, and they're never going to go away. It's just a question of can they adapt to an ever-changing landscape.
Exactly. No, I love that so much, Trevor. And I got two more questions for you. One, if you could solve any major challenge today that you're seeing, whether it's through advising or through technology, what would it be for you?
I think the major problem that like I would love to solve, and we're kind of going about solving, is like, I want every business owner everywhere to have at their fingertips underlying health and value metrics on their business at all times. Just like they pull up their bank account or they pull up their investments, I would love for them to have that on their business too, because it just informs and creates better outcomes. And so that, for me, back to my M&A days, like that's just something that like it's always just irked me, where it's like we have everything else at our fingertips, yet this one thing that is typically the vast majority of their wealth is this black box. And so again, that's an outcome of us doing really well, and it's not the main focus. It's how do we supercharge these advisors to create more value for their businesses. But if we do that really well, I get to solve for that. And I think that's the part that I'm most passionate about, because I think one day we're going to look back and we're going to be like, hey, do you remember when every business owner ran their business and just created financial statements and then went about their day again? And like didn't understand where they're creating value, how they're creating value, where they're strong and where they're weak. Like one day we're going to look back and think that was nuts.
Yeah. Stone Age technologies. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I really love to hear it. And then lastly, I want to kick it off. As a founder as successful as yourself, what advice would you have for any new founders who see a problem and want to take action on it?
I think I kind of operate, and we talk about this internally, as you can tell by my passion. Like I'm a bit of a cheerleader internally for our company as well. As I tell people that like there's two pains. Right? There's the pain of failing and there's the pain of regret. They both hurt. Which one would you rather? And I view it as the pain of regret hurts more.
Every time.
And so if
not
you
in the moment,
right, one day you're going to look back and be like, you're not going to remember your failures because they inform where you go next. Right? You learn from them. The pain of regret will never leave, and it will be painful. And so I've always looked at it and say, if you see a problem, attack it. Go get feedback. Like, don't go full bore. Like, don't put your life savings into it until you have some markers that like there's something here. But like, don't be afraid to do that. It's the whole concept of like, Thomas Edison had 1,000 failed experiments before he invented the light bulb.
And everyone remembers the light bulb.
You just got to create a loop where like failing fast is okay, but like just don't be afraid to attack it because that fear of regret will eat at you forever.
Amazing. Fail fast, fail forward. Well, Trevor, I'm so grateful to have someone of your capabilities on this podcast. I know the viewers are going to be taking a lot of insights from this, regardless of what industry they are. But yeah, thank you so much for hopping on, and looking forward to the continued success of interVal.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.